Hello everybody and welcome back to the 94Co channel. It is once again absolutely freezing cold in North Carolina. So in case you are new here, my name is Chobi. I own a business in North Carolina called 94Co and I love to work on Volkswagens. In a previous video series, we took this GTI and we stuck a manual swapped 3.6 liter VR6 in it and got it fully functioning as if it came that way from the factory. In this video series, we are taking that car one step further and we are adding manual all-wheel drive to this car. Today is a very exciting day because my friend Nick, not to be confused with my brother Nick, but my friend Nick is coming to weld in the plates that I cut up for the trunk since we had to cut out our spare wheel well, and he is going to weld in the drive shaft center support bearing brackets so that way we can get our drive shaft bolted in as if this car came that way from the factory. So let's not waste any time. Let's watch Nick do his thing, and we're going to be making this thing all-wheel drive real soon. Check it out. Alrighty, while I have the seam sealer drying, I have gone and I have reassembled our rear end. So we have our rear differential in along with the rear axles. Once again, a tremendous thank you to PowerFlex for sending us out their Black Series bushings for the rear position and the front position of our differential. This thing is pretty much ready to go. We need to get this thing wheeled over to the GTI, and then we can hoist this thing in place, and we are going to have a factory 4-motion rear end bolted into this car. I absolutely cannot wait. We are getting so close to this car actually being complete. Let's get it in there. Alrighty, so before I go any further, and honestly to give myself a break from rolling around on the ground and turning wrenches, I'm going to step aside and we're going to talk about some wiring. So I have in my hand, this is a section of wiring harness from that Golf R that we bought over the summer, and this is the section of wiring that is responsible for the lift pump, since our fuel tank now has 2 pumps, and for the actual Haldex controller. So to my surprise, there have been a lot of you who have been messaging me asking about wiring. So I guess I'm not the only nerd out there who's a sucker for pain. So let's sit down a little bit and talk about what all this is going to entail. It's a disaster. Okay, so first up, let's talk about the lift pump connector. It's 3 pins. They are 1, 2, and 3 on the screen from right to left. So pin 1 is a ground, and that's very easy because you can literally just ground it to any ground. And then pin 2 and 3 are going to go up to the connector behind the cluster. They're going to go to pin 3 and 4 on the cluster. So pin 2 goes to pin 3 goes to pin 4. Let me hop in the cabin, kind of show you what I did. So since I have a bunch of extra wiring just laying around the garage, I actually found an old piece of wiring loom that had the right pins. It is worth mentioning pin 2 and 3 on here are going to be empty. In most situations, if you're doing the swap to a PQ car, pin 3 and 4 are going to be empty, but I happened to find an old, I think it was like an airbag harness, and it had the right pins, and they snapped right in. So that's it. As far as the fuel pump connector, it's just 2 power wires that go to the cluster, and then a ground wire. You can ground it on the battery, you can ground it at your grandma's house, just as long as it's grounded. This is a 6-pin connector, and this is what goes to the Haldex module. So the 2 orange wires, that's CAN high and CAN low, those need to be spliced into a CAN high and CAN low signal in the powertrain data bus. So not just any CAN high and CAN low, it has to be powertrain data bus. So that's your engine management, your ABS, a few other things, but you need to tie those into powertrain management, CAN high and CAN low. There's a ground wire, again, very simple. You can ground it to anything. And then there is a ignition source. So we don't want constant power going to this. We just want power when the key is on. And then there is a wire that's actually supposed to go to pin 3 of the brake light switch. That brake light switch, it's in the engine bay, but it does split off, and there's actually a pickup for it on the driver's side up underneath the dash. I'll show you where to find that. I am underneath the dash. This is a connector that I took the housing off of. That is at the body control module. This is going to be connector C. They are labeled on the body control module. Pin 17, the reason I have this split apart is because pin 17 is on the inside here, and they're numbered on the inside, so I had to split this apart to find it. Pin 17 is one of the pickups for that brake light switch signal that we need, and so instead of trying to go all the way through the firewall up into the engine bay and splice into the connector here, you can actually just splice into the wire that comes off of pin 17 on this connector C on the body control module. So that's really it. As you can see, it's pretty straightforward. It is nothing like all the wiring that I had to do when I engine swapped the car, but nonetheless, wiring can be intimidating, so if this is something that you don't feel comfortable with, that's totally fine. Just find a buddy or find a shop that is comfortable with it, because the last thing you want to do is screw something up and then you're trying to backtrack a self-inflicted wiring issue. So I'm going to put the camera down. I'm not going to film any of this. It's going to be very boring, and also a lot of the interior is a low light situation, so it's just not going to look good aesthetically. But I'll double back and show y'all once I'm done, and then we'll get back to wrenching on the car and getting this thing assembled. All right, it may not look like much, but I just wrapped up the wiring. Took me about an hour or so. Let me show you what we got going on. So first of all, up in the engine bay, I decided to just tap into powertrain CAN bus right off of the ECU. So I just have these extended leads. This is scrap wiring from the Golf R. So we have that spliced into the body harness up at the ECU. So there is our pickup for the Haldex CAN bus signal. In the back, I was able to just nicely braid our grounds together. And so I can tie this into the seatbelt buckle. That's always a good ground location. And then this is the switched 12 volt for the Haldex, and I just have this piggybacking off of the GTI fuel pump module. And then in here, you can't even tell, I have the whole harness run underneath here, underneath the carpet. So I have the rest of the harness pickup for the brake light switch is up underneath the dash, and then I have our wires that we relocated, or rather rehoused in the cluster, pin 3 and 4. Have that all tied in. Once again, twisted together, add a little harness tape so that way everything is nice and secure, doesn't get caught on anything. And like that, we have the car wired up and ready for its all-wheel drive. With all the wiring done, it pretty much just leaves the long process of bolting everything back onto the car. So we have the rear end in and the drive shaft in, but we've still got to do the heat shield, we've still got to get the wheels on, we still need to take off a bunch of miscellaneous clamps and brackets from the old rear end and get them rib nutted into the new rear end. Stuff like the brake line cable brackets, the headlight level sensor, pickup point that goes on the lower control arm. Lots and lots of little stuff. We need to top up fluids in the rear end since we replaced the filters and stuff like that. So there's lots of little stuff, a long list of short items, but that's the kind of stuff that can take longer than you realize. And then we'll get the trunk put back together, put the battery in it, coat it, and hopefully take this thing for its first rip. So let's start slapping the rest of this thing together. right? Because I didn't check anything yet. And now we're going to go to long coding helper. Let's check all-wheel drive. All right, boom. That's actually all you have to do, guys, to add all-wheel drive to your car. You just program it, and the car grows the rest. Will it accept this? It did accept that. So should we try and start it and put it in gear and see if all four
I say go for it. Worst case, car explodes.
That would be worst case. Trying to see if I can find the advanced measuring value for like the fuel level float resistance, like the number in ohms.
Okay.
Because that would tell me if I'm actually fuel level sender 1, right? Because of our front wheel drive. So we expect that to work because our new fuel pump just plugs right in like it was the old fuel pump. Number 2, hey, all right, cool. It's measuring. So I don't really know what I did, other than, I mean, I did the wiring, so I guess it just takes the wiring. So I wonder if these are like equipped to just, when it gets signal, then it knows what's going on. And they're pretty close. So that means that the fuel level is level, side to side. So I think we need to stop pussyfooting around, and I think we should try and start this thing. It's gonna be really loud. And then just stick it in first and see if all the wheels spin.
And send it.
Send it right out of here. Right. We built a snowmobile. It's gonna drag on out of here. Here we go. Yes! Yes! It's all-wheel drive! It's all-wheel drive! I did it! I did it! I did it! Wait, are you still in slow-mo?
No.
Let's go, we did it. All right, I think that is all she wrote for this episode. It's probably gonna be a bit of a long one. I tried experimenting with just a lot more B-roll footage and cinematic stuff, so if y'all feel so inclined, let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. It's the biggest way to help me out right now since I'm so new to this YouTube thing. But we don't have much left work to do to the car, honestly. We still need a nut and bolt the rear end. Most of the components in the rear end are just kind of loosely put together, you know, as far as like suspension components and that sort of thing. And we need to just reassemble our interior. I'm gonna re-nutsert the battery tray. I'm gonna use some bigger bolts, get our trunk set up in, and then beyond that, we just need to do a little bit of coating. But I have to talk to my tuner. It's rejecting my all-wheel drive coating in the ECU, which I kind of expected. So we will flash this basically with an all-wheel drive with a Passat 3.6 Formo cloned software, and then that really ought to take care of most of the little bugs that we have right now. There's going to be little growing pains and bumps and bruises along the way, but let me know what you guys think. I'm really excited if you couldn't tell. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Appreciate y'all watching. I'll catch you on the next one.
I did it!